When you were there the first couple of years, you were telling Vince, we have to invest in the youth. We have to get younger. We have to, do new stuff. And one of the people that you pushed for was Mick Foley to get signed.
Yeah.
Um, and when you were sort of pitching Mick Foley to Vince, what were Vince's initial reactions?
No. He tried out 3 times, did Mick. Pronoun boy. He. Mick tried out 3 times at the dark matches prior to the live event, and it just didn't work for him. But I got the job as head of talent relations, and I think Vince wanted to humor me and let me have something. I was negotiating, and I had, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I bring this guy in? Whatever. And I don't think he wanted to hurt my feelings, so he gave me and Mick Foley one more shot, and I never regret that. How could you? Best-selling author. He worked WrestleMania main events. He was not the typical WWE superstar. He didn't look like one. He didn't sound like one. But that's what made him great. He was different. So Vince let me have a shot at him, and I had this guy. Mick is 6'4", and he at that time we were booking him as to be a villain, and so he and my goal was for him to work with Taker. Taker's a big, he's 6'10", maybe just a shade under 7 feet, which 6'10" is. And so I thought Mick would match up with Taker. And they had worked together some in a previous company. So, and Undertaker was more than happy to work with Mick. And then when Undertaker told Vince that he was more than happy to work with Mick, that's kind of closed the deal. And so I knew at least we'd get one go round with it, one run in the territory, so to speak. And it, as I said, it's one of those things that worked out. Everything clicked, and Mick became one of our most valuable people, and he fulfilled all of his obligations. He exceeded everything that we expected of him. So it was a milestone for me, because one of my first gets, so to speak, was Mick, and I'll always be grateful for him for coming in and having such a great career. He wanted it so badly, and nobody worked harder or smarter. Nobody was more cooperative. And the great thing about Mick, and it's probably the one trait that I always looked for in talent, Mick was reliable. He's going to be at work on time. He's going to do what he's asked to do to the very best of his ability and beyond. So it was a match made in one ear heaven.
And I mean, because you famously said that Vince told you, when he hired Mick Foley, I'm going to show you what it's like to get your heart broken.
Yeah.
He sort of said, this isn't going to work. So when
that was uplifting, wasn't it? I'm going to show you what it feels like to get your heart broken by backing and hiring a talent that you really and truly believed in, but was going to take a giant dump on you because he's not going to make it. And guess what? He did. And it gave me a lot of leeway to hire others. And that was kind of the gig.
But when he gets signed, and it's he's coming in, when you sort of heard about the Mankind gimmick, that was going to be what it was, what were your initial thoughts? Do you think this is good, or that they're trying to?
No, Mick liked it. Anytime you can get your talents to buy into a gimmick, a character, you're onto something. Because if they're contributing to the gimmick, they're a lot more apt to work harder at making it a success. And so that's how I approach that. And we had a lot of other guys that were in that same boat where that they just were their heart and souls into the character. They finally made it to the level that they've been aspiring to forever. And so all I did was provide them an opportunity and encourage them to take the ball and run with it. And most of my guys did that. And a lot of them are millionaires now, and a lot of them are destined for the Hall of Fame without question. And Mick was just the first one out of that group that fulfilled everything that we wanted. And it showed the other guys, if you put your heart at it and you put your heart into it, anything's possible. And that's kind of how that worked with Mick. It worked out just beautifully. He's one of my favorite hires because he showed that he didn't have to have a bodybuilder body. He didn't have to be all oiled up and greasy. He was just the greatest, and he didn't do it with gimmicks, and in a way, but really not. What you saw is what you got. And then we came up with the Mankind thing, and then I did the vignettes with Mick, which was a lot of fun until he put the mandible claw on me. That bastard. How could you turn on good old JR, Mick? Mick had two mandible claws. He had the shoot mandible claw, where he put the fingers in your mouth and pressed down on your tongue. And then he had the spot show mandible claw. And that was where his fingers, they started to go in your mouth and they went this way. She took care of you. That's just him. He's sensitive. And I was sensitive and scared, so it worked out pretty good. But anyway.
I do. So in 1996, there was a reluctant star on WWF television, a new heel by the name of Jim Ross.
Yeah.
When he got you to do that work shoot promo and then there's fake Razor and fake Diesel. How is this pitched to you that it's going to happen? I know you didn't like it, but how is it pitched to you? What's the idea, and how do you sort of react to it?
I never really understood why. I think Vince thought I was getting too popular. And people like JR for whatever reason. I've really never figured that out. But I appreciate it. And I think that he thought I might be getting a little bit too popular, maybe even a bit too big for my britches. And so we just came to the conclusion that in my side, I'm just going to do whatever they want. I might have fun being a heel for a while. I'm willing to try. That's what you want. It's hard to debate the boss when he or she gives you your marching orders, and it's just senseless to fight back, push back. So I didn't want to do it, but I wasn't going to stand on my feelings and not do it. So it was a interesting time for me because I was between this rock and the hard spot, and I just enjoyed the hell out of trying new things, but I never felt like I had a heel in me.
I mean, they're on YouTube. There's some very entertaining clips of you on Livewire berating Vince, hanging up on collars. I mean, I think it's Survivor Series 96 where Vince gets up from the announce table and starts dancing to Sonny's music, and then you just go, "That's the owner of the World Wrestling Federation. Look at that." Did you get to have fun with that part of it?
He loved that, yeah. And look, when your boss is having a blast, the last thing you want to do is intervene and piss him off and take him out of that good mood. Vince loved to dance. He loved all the crazy shit that he could do. He said to me, Vince has said this oftentimes, that Shawn Michaels reminded Vince of a young Vince. So there you are. We just wanted him to have fun. the more you could keep him happy, the less it would keep him angry. And he wouldn't be, hey, pal. It was good. It was good. So that was a lot of fun in that era. I think back on it, on doing the shows with you, Kenny, and it's pretty good memories, actually. Sometimes the creative you're assigned might not be to your liking, but that's irrelevant. What's relevant is making it work. Making it work. We got some young guys here today, and if your teacher assigns you a task, a book report, and you need to turn this book report in by next Friday, the teacher's not going to negotiate with you. He or she wants to see that book report on her desk a week from Friday. And so don't go in there negotiating and saying, well, I don't want to do that, or that don't sound very entertaining. It's your job to make it entertaining. Be creative. Think outside the box. And that's what we did more often than not with him. But I love those moments where you're challenged. And I thought that was part of my strength, flexibility, and not being boo-hoo, and because it was easy to get down on the system, but I tried not to.
And then around that time, October 96, Bret Hart comes back and Vince gives him this $20 million contract, 20 years. And, at that point in time, because there were ideas that Bret might go to WCW, what were you thinking? You're close to Vince about him re-signing Bret to the massive deal.
I never liked Bret as a heel, even though he was a very effective one. Because had so much respect for him, I never felt him being a bad guy. Now, I know it's pro wrestling. You can be anything you want. We could have brought him out there as a Nazi, and it would have worked out all right.
I don't know if Bret would have gone for that. Maybe.
He probably wouldn't, and he shouldn't. That was just a out there characterization of the Hitman, who I have the utmost respect for. My favorite match, you guys asked me going through the lines today, my favorite match that I called was Bret and Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13. Because what they did in that match was they executed a double turn. Bret went from good guy to bad guy, and Steve went from bad guy to good guy, and they did it all in one fell swoop, as expertly and as cool as anything I've ever seen. If you go back and if you want to see a masterful booking, and they call that match in the ring. They didn't sit down and have meetings. They had a plan, and Bret called the match in the ring, and Steve added a little bit here, there, and yon. But Steve was getting his feet wet too. So, but that match with Bret did as much for Stone Cold's career as any match he ever had. So that was a match made in heaven. They could have wrestled for a year, for all I care, because it'd been different every night.
But, I mean, there was stories though afterwards that Vince regretted having to do such a big deal to keep Bret. Was that true at the time, or was he into it at the beginning?
Well, I think Vince ran out of money, and he knew that his obligation of a 20-year big money deal might not hold water. He didn't have the cash. Business was down, and that's why Vince and I had these ongoing discussions about we have to get younger, and we have to try new people in the front line, and maybe we get somebody gets over, and that was Stone Cold, and that was Rock, and that was Lesnar, and all those guys I signed. They all had a great opportunity to be stars because of their abilities.